Hello again, everybody. Welcome to another edition of the Pip and Dodds podcast with the star of the show, the former Badger, the former Packer, Gary Ellerson, 105.7 FM, The Fan, the catalyst on the big show, 2 to 6 weekdays. And, of course, he is on Spectrum News 1 with Leroy Butler, Dennis Krause, the football show. Fellas, great to be with you. John Dodds, the Packers historian, and recent history. 49ers, 37. The Packers, 8. So much to talk about, Gary. I think people are enough. Let's move ahead. But I think disturbing to me was the Niners punched him in the gut, right in the mouth, really, and they had no reaction.
No, I think if you look at the Green Bay Packers, that's kind of been maybe the story of the season. Pretty much, I think you look at the Philadelphia game, that kind of happened that way too, right? I think they got beat up. And so I think when you look at the Packers, maybe we found out that I think they're probably the fourth best team in the NFC, and that's not bad. I think if you look at the 49ers, maybe Packer fans are now waking up and going, maybe the 49ers are really good. Because I think a lot of Packer fans thought that this 49ers team wasn't very good. Like we talked about last week, they've got 5 first-round draft choices on their defensive line. That means something. And they hit on all 5 of them. Now, D Ford comes over in a trade, so he'd make the 5th guy they didn't actually draft. But they got after the quarterback. They got after Aaron Rodgers. And they just couldn't really do anything. Defensively, I thought they played well enough, though, to win. They gave up some big plays at the end, like they always do, but I thought they hung in there. I just think the offense just didn't give the defense enough help in order to try to pull this win out.
Well, you called that about the Niner D. I think disturbing, John, is that the Pack had prep. They're coming off a bye week. They faced a Niners team with key players out, and yet Matt LaFleur not able to get the job done. It seemed as if the inexperience did come through. He was clearly outcoached.
Well, it seemed like they were out-hustled, as Gary said, out-physicaled. They were out-schemed. It was really discouraging to the point where on Monday morning, I had to watch 2 Hallmark Christmas movies just to make myself feel better to take on the week. I mean, it was wow. But after a bye, that's what they had after the bye. California must be kryptonite to the Packers this year. Gary, we talked briefly last week that the eye test for San Francisco last year, we were both struck watching their team speed last year when they were in Lambeau. Their running backs, their tight ends, their wide receivers, their DBs, they just come to the ball quicker. And that seems to be what happened there. The Packers, if you look at the box score, it's phenomenal. The Packers had the ball 10 and a half minutes more than San Francisco and had 25 more offensive plays. And it all comes down to explosive plays. They had 12 plays of 15 yards or more and 2 plays of over 40 yards. So those were quick touchdowns. The game was over at the end of the first half. It was 10-0. They got 13 points in the last 4 minutes, and the Packer defense kind of was hanging in there, keeping them out of the end zone. But the offense was 3 and out, and that had to be discouraging.
Aaron Rodgers, 3.2 yards per attempt. I mean, perhaps the worst game of his career, and he's had a lot of great ones, as we're well aware. The Packers 0 for 13 with 12 of the game on third down opportunities. It was absolutely horrible. And where in the world, since Davante Adams has come back, as great as he is, the offense is, and what's happening with 33? 14 touches or plays involved for Aaron Jones, 1 targeted pass. That has got to change, Gary.
You know, a lot of people call into our show, and a lot of people were upset, right? And rightly so. And they're upset about what happened to Aaron Jones. You're right, coincides really with the return of Davante Adams and what's going on. This offense, to me, feels like part McCarthy's offense and part LaFleur's offense. So it may be part what Aaron Rodgers wants to do and part what LaFleur wants to do. When they didn't have Davante, it felt like it was all about LaFleur, because it was a quick passing game, short pass, get the ball out, everything was timing. If you watch the San Francisco 49ers offense, that's what their offense, the Packers offense, supposed to look like. Similar. You saw Garoppolo, slants, boom. I mean, didn't hold on to the football very long. And then when they wanted to take a shot, they had a play to take a shot, so they kept their defense sort of unbalanced. I think when you look at the end of the day, it's got to be maybe a come to Jesus meeting with Matt LaFleur and with Aaron Rodgers on what direction that this offense really want to go into, or how much do we really want to get Davante involved. When Davante wasn't there, it just felt like to me that Aaron Rodgers was making reads. He was reading the defense. He didn't predetermine that I'm going to Devontae on this play. And that's what it felt like in that game. You knew, okay, Devontae down the sideline, I'm going to him. That happened like 3-4 times. Well, those matchups are predicated on matchups, and that's McCarthy's offense. LaFleur's offense is about reading defense and taking what the defense gives you. And that's not happening right now within this offense.
And Aaron Rodgers, as great as he is, I thought he'd be the difference. I think we all felt that would happen in a previous podcast, and they'd win this game. But he just cannot carry a team the way he did before. John, he's going to have great numbers, clean-looking numbers, but he's not the same player and maybe too dependent, to pick up on Gary's point, on number 17. What's your take on that offensive side of the ball?
Well, go back to Bud Grant in our rule. It's not who you play, it's when you play them. They played the Kansas City Chiefs when Kansas City had 2 linebackers who were down. So when they put Aaron Jones out, there was a backup linebacker on him. Ever since that game, and it's too bad it was a Sunday night game, it seems like a defensive back now guards Aaron Jones. So I think that is pushing Rodgers elsewhere. But you need a playmaker. The big drop by Graham could have been about a 35-yard pass, and he caught the ball and it was batted out. I mean, it looked like he caught 95% of it, but you got to finish that play. Lazard had the 21-yard end-around play, but then on the play that Rodgers fumbled, they showed that Lazard went out and fell down. And so that was the guy Rodgers was looking for. So now with him down, now you're at a big disadvantage, and he got sacked, and there was the fumble, which is one of the bigger plays of the game.
What discouraged me was that other than that drive aided by a couple of 49ers penalties that resulted in the little toss for Adams in his first touchdown of the year, there was just nothing. I mean, they could do nothing offensively. Now, on the defensive side of the ball, why are guys coming free the way they are? Kevin King is not playing as well as I think we thought. Now, I don't know if he should get the blame for the 61-yarder to George Kittle. The guy's playing hurt, Kittle. It goes to show you what a great tight end does. And as you say, John, there's a big drop-off between Adams and the other receivers. But defensively, they still cannot cover a tight end.
No, that's been going on since Dom Capers, hasn't it? I mean, forever. And I felt like on the Kittle's play that he had help over the top, and I think that somebody wasn't there with King. I think he was expecting help on the top because you see him bail out to the other side. Maybe it felt like he had quarters. So I don't want to blame that all on him.
Right. There were two thoughts on that, and I agree with you. That wasn't. But the point I want to make is on 20. He grabs. I mean, he's not making a lot of big plays. I don't know if he's as good as we thought he was.
He's a physical corner, and he wants to grab. I mean, that's what he wants to do. He's not. He's not having a bad year, but he's not having a great year. I think he's doing okay. I mean, there's a couple plays I thought he made in the end zone a couple times where you saw his height and where he ready to get up and knock a ball away. I think he's been able to do that. I think Alexander, they resigned themselves not to maybe go after him, and they're going to go after Kevin King, which is fine. So, I mean, he's just got to play better. He's got to pick up his game. But there's something that's not right within the middle of that field, and it's not really all him. Maybe they need better linebacker play in there. But listen, I just thought overall, though, to me, the defense played well enough to win. The problem, you win and you lose as a team, right? I just think the offense didn't help the defense. This defense is not what the 49ers are. They don't have that kind of talent. I mean, we can see that. We can tell that. But they're good enough, I think, to be where they are now. The return game is abysmal. I mean, special teams right now are not very good.
Horrible. J.K. Scott, right?
I mean, the first 6-7 games, I thought he played well. Then all of a sudden, he's fallen off. And you're getting nothing out of the return game. And so I think with all this coupled together, I think this is what you got on Sunday night, is that you got a team that all of a sudden you saw that they need better players or more players to add to this recipe. You can see it.
Yeah, absolutely. They are the fourth best team in the NFC. It's not bad. You'll take 8-3. We'll see if the Vikings can catch them. We'll talk more in another podcast about a week schedule going forward. John, I know I want to give you a shot to talk about Kevin King because I'm saying, okay, I don't know if he is as good as, but I know that you like him a bunch. You like Bulaga a bunch. He had to go out with a knee, MCL sprain. week to week, we'll see how that goes. That really hurt him. Alex Light in there offensively, certainly that. But your take on Kevin King lately in his play?
Yeah, they're picking on him, and it shows you how good Alexander is. They're not going anywhere near Alexander.
Yeah.
Kevin King is so much better than what you have on the bench that you put up with that. Yeah, he's not having Kevin King is still worse than having Kevin King playing poorly. He has made, I think, I can remember 2 interceptions in the red zone, in the end zone, one against Oakland where he soared, whatever. And so he makes big plays for him. The play with Kittle, that play reminded me of the Jordy Nelson touchdown passes that Aaron Rodgers used to throw for about 5 years. They kind of lined him up as a third tight end, and they snuck him on the side, and they had him go deep, and it was wide open. And Rodgers used to just go back and throw the ball here, and Nelson would be running against space with the defender behind him. And that's exactly what they ran with Kittle's. Regarding J.K. Scott, I've heard that J.K. Scott hurt his foot on that block punt. There was a block punt about 4 or 5 weeks ago in one of the games. It's not coming to me which game that was, but he hasn't been the same since. So there might be something that they're not really mentioning. But that's discouraging when every exchange of punts for the first 5 games, you were gaining 15 yards. Now you're losing 15 yards. That 30-yard punt at the end of the second quarter led to a field goal. So
that was ugly, as you said. Those last few minutes into halftime were ugly.
And the punt returning is historically bad. This is the worst in NFL history. They've only had, I think, their longest punt return is 8 yards. The rest of it is negative yards. So they've only had 1 positive punt return, I believe, the entire year.
And you ask yourself, where's that player?
Oakland?
Yeah.
They traded Trevor Davis.
Right, they don't have that player.
Yeah.
That player's missing on this.
Randall Cobb looked pretty good, didn't he, for Dallas?
You can see that. And they have a lot of holes like that within this team where major holes are they're just not getting anything out of. And so I think that's one that you can see right away. The Trevor Davis, I have no idea why you would make that trade when you only really had 1 return guy. It just didn't make sense to me.
I want to mention that we are brought to you by our wonderful sponsors at PCI, Professional Construction, Inc. They have been with us for 15 years as a great company. Mike and Michelle Grouse, so involved in the community. We are honored to have them on our team and certainly honored to be with our teammates here at WisconsinSportsStream.com, WSS Sports. The defense, as you said, did some good things, Gary, but they didn't get turnovers.
Right.
And as you're well aware, they have got to get turnovers for this team to win.
No, they do, and that's kind of what the first 4 or 5 weeks, that's what they were doing. They were getting turnovers. They're not getting those anymore. Now, they got 3 sacks in that game, which is, they got to the quarterback, but still they weren't able to turn. Listen, San Francisco came in with a good game plan, right? They knew that Garoppolo, they didn't want him in 3rd and long. So they made it 3rd and manageable, and that's what they were able to do. They were able to stay ahead of the sticks, so that forced the Green Bay Packers to really not play the kind of defense that they want to play. The only way you can get to Garoppolo, and Garoppolo will throw you some interceptions,
right.
But when they have that run game going, which is, the Green Bay Packers defense is not very good against the run, and they had that run game going, and the Packers just couldn't do anything about it. If you go back and look at the Packers, they probably need to look at their defensive linemen and probably get better defensive linemen next year. They've got some holes. I still think, listen, if they can find the magic that they had those first 4 or 5 weeks, right, and the offense can play like it did, and they can get turnovers, I still think this can be a Super Bowl team, but the margin of error that they have is very minimal.
Another Packers alum, John Kuhn, was saying, we'll find out what it is to bounce back. You're down, are you out, or how are you going to respond? How important is it? How do you feel this team, Gary, will respond?
I don't think you'll find out anything about this team against the Giants or against Washington. I don't know if this team will feel good when they beat them, because it was such a letdown, because the test was the 49ers. You're supposed to go to New York and beat them. Here's a team with their best player, Saquon Barkley. I don't think he's had a 100-yard rushing game in like 7 weeks, right? I think they're maybe on a 5-game losing streak or something like that. So you go to New York, you beat them. I don't know how good you feel. You go to Washington. Well, Washington comes here, you beat them. The next big test is going to be Minnesota. Now, I can look ahead, right? We can look ahead, but Those guys can't. But if we're looking down the line, I'm just trying to feel if I were a player, I'm going to feel good about the win because you want to stack wins up, but we know that we're supposed to go to New York and get that victory.
My favorite Packer show is during the week. Gary and Leroy with Dennis Krause is my number one. I've told this to Dennis for the last 3 years.
Spectrum News 1.
Football show. My 1A is the Dennis Krause pregame show on TMJ. It's 2 hours. He had Hub Arkush on, and I was in the car listening to it before the San Francisco game, and Hub Arkush brought up a point I didn't think of. He said, who do you think is going to win tonight? He said, I think San Francisco is going to win because they have to win. I said, well, why do they have to win? They have to win because this is a home game. They play on the road at Baltimore, at New Orleans, and at Seattle over the next 5 weeks. So if they don't beat the Packers tonight, they're going to be in big trouble.
Yeah.
They may not even get to 11 wins. Still, the Packers might have an easier chance to get to 12 wins than San Francisco, surprisingly. They have a very tough schedule remaining. We said all year when there's a certain 5 players that have to play, and it's A-Rod, Bulaga, Bakhtiari, Aaron Jones, and Kevin King, because Kevin King allows Alexander to play. When Bulaga got hurt, I thought, now you're significantly limiting Aaron Rodgers' ability to have time and to see things. San Francisco played man-to-man for most of the year. They played 2-deep zone, and they put they put nickel on Aaron Jones. They had the DB on Aaron Jones, but they also doubled Devontae Adams. Not enough talent to overcome that for A-Rod. So if he's getting pressured and he has less time because Bulaga's out, that's a no-win situation. I hope they dodged the bullet where Bulaga can come back soon. But now they're talking about possibly moving Turner over to guard and bringing in maybe a backup guard and putting him at backup center and putting him in.
What happened to once upon a time there were 8, 9 guys getting touches, receiving, catching balls. Whatever happened to that?
Yeah.
I mean, that's not happening anymore. And you're right. They are now putting a DB on Aaron Jones. But he wasn't the end-all, be-all. I mean, there were like 9 other guys involved in his offense that are no longer involved in his offense. So what, and I'm not saying you're Aaron Rodgers apologist, but that's what it sounds like. If they're going to do this, it is what it is. It's going to have to be on 12. And 12 is going to have to get it all figured out and get back to the 8, 9 guys that were spreading this thing out and that was looking so good. You're right. Defenses and teams see and they make adjustments. I mean, that's what they do.
I love what he's doing. He's moving forward. We've got stuff this is a great tease for our next podcast. What do you say? We'll take a time out and we'll just do this thing again.
Can we do it all day?
You're Gary Ellerson. We will do anything
day?
you want because you are the star of the Pip and Dodds podcast. We're so grateful to have you. We're so grateful to be with our wonderful friends here at WSS Sports and Professional Construction, Inc., our wonderful sponsors, Mike and Michelle Grau in the community. We'll be developing that as we go forward. And before we sign off, I want to give a special thanks to Pat Enters and the good folks at Enters in Heartland, because when we got started, before we got this superstar, they gave us that chance, and we really appreciated that opportunity. So we'll take a time out. If you want to hang around, we're going to put another podcast up before too long. A happy and blessed Thanksgiving, everybody. We certainly appreciate you, and look forward to more podcasts about the green and gold. So long.